This is the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast, and we're here to build autonomous athletes and put phenomenal programming into every garage, basement, and spare bedroom out there. I'm Jerred Moon, and I'm with Courtney. We are strength and conditioning coaches who have turned over 20,000 people into garage gym athletes over the last decade. And we're here to reduce the information overload that exists in the health and fitness industry today. We're going to do that by covering relevant science and give actionable takeaways, not only from the data, but from our years of experience. So let's dive in. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. Jerred Moon here with Courtney. What's up, Joe?
How's it going, man?
Going pretty well. Today, spoiler alert, we're going to be talking all things HYROX and talking about training for HYROX programming, why I'm interested in it, the fact that I signed up for one. And so that's what we're diving into today. If you're interested in how to train for one of these, maybe you're interested in the event, anything like that at all, definitely going to be diving into a lot of the details of that. But before we do, some updates from us. Joe, how's training, man? How you feeling? Last time you were getting needled and your shoulder was a little bit wonky, but how you feeling now?
It's still wonky. It's not going to get fixed that quick. I got dry needled last week.
Dry needle would do it in a week, man. I thought that was my hope.
It freed up my mobility, but I still had all the pain associated there still. So I went back and then I got a lidocaine shot in my shoulder. Have you ever had one of those?
I've not. I'm familiar though.
Yeah. So pretty cool. So basically like painkiller and anti-inflammatory and steroid to help heal the area. So much less pain now. That was just yesterday. We're about just over 24 hours. So most of the pain is gone. I still have some lingering going into my deltoid, but he said it'll take a day or two for it all to metabolize. And then, so I'm just, resting it now for everything to kind of take into effect. And so I won't I ran today. I'll just do something light or something tomorrow, but nothing upper body. And then Monday I'll start doing like crossover symmetry, banded stuff, just to really work the different ranges of motion in my shoulder and just to, kind of do things again with it. And hopefully, I'm optimistic, I guess, about it. He said, sometimes after a couple of months, you might need another one, or sometimes people never need another one ever again. They just need the one, and it just needed that to like reduce the inflammation in the tendons that are going on, and then it's just back to normal. So that's what I'm hoping on. I'm
sure that's how it will work out. You'll be perfectly fine.
It's just so strange and kind of awesome that in the past I've gone to PT several times before, and I've done PT with other military hospitals. And normally it's like you see the actual physical therapist like once, and then you're just, okay, here's these exercises, and this person's going to watch you do your exercises to make sure they're doing them right. And that's it. And that's like your contact with them. But this time I've seen only the PT 3 times. And it's been like, hey, let's needle you. Hey, let's do this. Hey, let's do this. I'm like, that's awesome. That's like fantastic. I know the exercises of what to do for my shoulder for the most part, but pretty happy with that.
That's a tough one. Well, I wish you all the best in your recovery and your PT journey. So good luck.
always have some sort of recovery.
So update for me. We're talking about HYROX. I signed up for a HYROX with Mark Bishop. We're doing pro doubles. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But that means I've also kind of shifted my programming a little bit, not a whole lot. So a lot of what I've been doing is kind of what cycle 1 of this year, body geo and running is kind of been my combination. And so I've been doing that, a lot of body geometry work and running. My shift now is I'm just adding in a lot more mixed modality. Again, I'm going to talk about the reasoning behind all this stuff. Like I did the GGA 5K this week, which is a brutal workout. And then, so I'm just doing a lot more of those things, a lot more intervals, still going to be running a good amount. Eventually I'll be throwing in some IWTs. So anyway, I'll be talking about kind of the programming for that and programming for HYROX in this episode. But that's the big update for me is my training has shifted a little bit. I'm sharing most of that on Instagram through like my stories if you do want to follow along for what I'm doing. But that's a lot of my focus right now is training for this HYROX, which is November 23rd here in Dallas, Texas. So I had like 3.5 months to train for it, which is, with already having a good base. I think it's solid. The only bummer is I did the ultra marathon with Bishop in April, and then I didn't run for 3 months because I hated running so much after the ultra. And I wish I would not. If I would have known I was doing the HYROX, I would have kept running. So I picked running back up in June, and so I've been running, whatever, 2 months now or a little bit less than that. And things have I've gotten most of it back pretty fast. But let's get into the HYROX. I'll go ahead and brief the event, and then we can just discuss kind of our thoughts on it in general. So I'm specifically briefing the pro doubles because that's what Mark Bishop and I are doing. And so you start with a 1K run, and then you come back, and it's a series of 1K runs, and then like a modality, like some sort of obstacle. I don't want to call it obstacle, some sort of like workout type thing. So 1K run, 1,000-meter ski erg, 1K run, 50-meter sled push for Mark and I. That's going to be at 446 pounds. Then it's 1K run, 50-meter sled pull. That's going to be 335 pounds. That's because it's pro. Pro is just heavier. 1K run, then 80-meter burpee broad jump, 1K run, 1,000-meter row, 1K run, 200-meter farmer carry, and that's going to be 2 times 32-kilogram kettlebells. So is that like the 70-pound kettlebell? Yeah. So like the 70-pound kettlebell in each hand for the pro. 1K run, 100-meter sandbag lunge at 66 pounds, which I thought was pretty weak, in all honesty. 1K run, and then 75 or 100 wall balls. Oh yeah, we're doing the 100 wall balls, and it's at 20 pounds. So, and then you're done. And so that is a HYROX, and it doesn't change. That is the HYROX event. A lot of people are comparing it to CrossFit and stuff, and those are kind of things I want to dive into. But what are your thoughts of the event overall?
I mean, I've had interest in this one for a while. I did a mock workout a few weeks or months ago. It definitely looks like a fun event. I definitely one that I think it'd be a lot of fun to do. The pro division. If I did one, I probably wouldn't jump into the pro because I just want to get my feet under me. But I could see it still being pretty good to do, especially for us because really the weights go up, and I think that would tip the scale a little bit in the favor of non-runners.
Well, do you want to know why we signed up for the pro?
I mean, that's just what you do. I feel like
the regular was sold out.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Well, I asked Mark like a couple weeks ago. I was like, "Hey, do you want to do this HYROX?" Because I was pretty interested, and it took him a while to like finalize and say, "Yeah, officially, like I can do it." And I think in that time period, HYROX regular doubles sold out, and so I was like, "Well, looks like we're doing pro doubles," and he was like, "Good with me, like let's do it." So I mean, in all honesty, I think that's my preference anyway, because if you do look at like the, I don't know, the average attendee or like competitor, I do think the regular division would have been too easy for us, or like, I mean, I'm not saying we would have come in first place or whatever. I'm just saying like, I think that we should challenge ourselves at the pro level, having seen like how many people sign up and the types of people that sign up. It's like almost anybody can do the regular if they have a good fitness base. And so I think it's good. The sled's going to be interesting. I just don't have a lot of sled work, so I don't know if 446 pounds on a sled on turf is a lot. I don't know if pulling a 335-pound sled is a lot. I don't really know. That's my only question mark. Everything else on here, I'm like, I know exactly what that's like and exactly what that feels like. And so that's the only one where I'm not sure. So I bought a sled. It just came in the mail. It came via UPS yesterday. I got the Torque M1 tank. It's like the mechanical resistance one. Like it's kind of like an Airdyne. Like the harder you push it, the more resistance it comes. It's got the 3 wheels or whatever. So I'm gonna start getting in some sled work with this thing and utilize that. It's what?
I said you went big.
Oh, did I? This is like the. Let me make sure I said the right one.
I mean, the one that I'm showing, yeah, it's a pretty penny.
Yeah, they're like $800 on Rogue's website.
Oh wow, okay. Not
$799. Yeah.
well. Of course, I'm in Europe, and the ones that I'm showing in Europe are like 1,300.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
They just charge more.
maybe they're yeah, or maybe they're just shipping or something American made. Anyway, that's awesome.
I'll let you know if it's worth it. I mean, I've always wanted a sled, and I've become more interested in these, whatever mechanical resistance ones, because if you have neighbors, in all honesty, like you can kind of take the screw your neighbors approach and be like, who cares? Like if if you have like one of those loud, like scraping ones on the concrete, I've just
Yeah.
never liked those. It's like, I really only like them if I'm on turf or grass. I don't like to rip up on my yard with
Yeah.
with a sled. When they are on concrete, they're super loud, and I'm like, I don't really want to be that guy. Like, I'll be the guy carrying a slosh pipe around. I don't care if you think I look weird, but I don't like to. I work out early. Like, I don't want to wake up my neighbors. Like, I just don't want to be an asshole when it comes to like fitness stuff. So I like these a lot. That's why I've been super interested in them, because it's like, okay, now we can get the really good workout, and we don't have to worry about waking people up or being a jerk and all those kind of things. But I kind of want to just open this up, the conversation, to HYROX in general, because I think this has been a big conversation about like, is this the new CrossFit? Um, is it just CrossFit? That that's kind of where I want to take the conversation, and I want to get your thoughts on it, because apparently they're about to launch like a level 1 HYROX certification, right? Like that's how CrossFit started, with their level 1 certifications. It's a competition. It's a known competition, unlike CrossFit competitions or like the CrossFit Games, where like the competitors don't know what they're walking into ever, right? Like it's just always like.
Dave has his theatrics of revealing the workouts that make no sense and are just
What's
dumb.
funny is they think that that's like what makes it so awesome, but like I think CrossFit's losing the battle. In all honesty, like people are becoming less interested. Like I think HYROX is like going to pass, if they haven't already passed CrossFit, um, and they're doing really well. But what are your thoughts on like this versus a CrossFit competition? Is it just a different version of a CrossFit competition in your mind, or is this like its own thing?
Dude, if you put this in front of a CrossFitter, they would die. This is
Yeah,
like 90 minutes of work, man. Um, I think it is great about it because it is the same thing all the time. What's happening. You can train for it with people, and predict like if you and somebody wants to, and I think it makes it more approachable because, I mean, not only the different divisions, you can do doubles, and which CrossFit competitions have that, but you can see it 6 months in advance, be like, I know exactly what I'm training for and I can practice for it. But like I've done the local CrossFit competitions too, and you don't find out the workouts in those until the week of. Like you might get 2 or 3 days of practice and like that's it. So they still keep the randomness there. But if you want to actually like for people who want to do something and actually be able to predict and train for it specifically, like that's what like running trail races and stuff like that people can do. And I think that's going to be a big difference. The length of it is a bit um is going to be definitely daunting. So if they grow more, they may you may only honestly you might kind of select Spartan. I think this more so replaces or competes with Spartan, and I think I discovered it looking for essentially a non-muddy Spartan, because the mud aspect
right.
is just it's just
Yeah.
freaking annoying. I don't think it adds anything to
Well,
it except annoyance.
the only thing that like kind of, and I've done one of them. I did it here in Dallas at the AT&T Stadium, was the Stadium Spartans, and
Hmm.
those were cool because it was like, yeah, we removed the mud, and so now it's more of just a fitness thing. But it was still like, it still wasn't enough. Like the Stadium Spartan, it was like, oh, I did the sprint, right, like a 5K, and yeah, some of the obstacles were tough or whatever. But then you get into like, they might have a sandbag, but you do like 5 reps and it's really light, and it's like not a big deal. They just always like, if I want to call it programming, the programming was always kind of weird, and they just made you go up a bunch of steps and down a bunch of steps. It was like, this is supposed to be fitness racing, right? Like I don't really consider Spartan races like a fitness race, like, I mean
Yeah.
it is, but it's not fitness racing. with
Yeah.
how they would structure some of their events.
Yeah, it's a trail race with stuff in the way. And they would highlight like, oh, 25, 30 obstacles, but like the obstacle could be literally like one little steeple thing you jumped over or something like something stupid like that.
Yeah.
So I do think it would compete and replace that. And I'm not sure if they will cater to like the shorter races, like a mini HYROX, but I think it's awesome if they don't, just because like, hey, this is what we're going to stick to. This is, if it's indoors, it's all set up and they have a procedure for how each of the stations are. So like two mixed divisions, I think would be really hard to do something like, unless they did like a kind of like what Spartan does with their whatever their one above beast is, the ultra, where they just do 2 laps of the whole course. So like if HYROX wanted to do an ultra HYROX where they just do the whole thing twice and like that, and that's it. But yeah, so I think it's more so in competition with those, but I think it should be more, to me it'll be more appealing, even though on the surface it looks really really hard to a lot of people because you're doing all of these things. But I also think it's would be more approachable to a lot of people, to me, as long as you can work out for 60 plus minutes.
Yeah, and I'm in complete agreement. Like, I don't think this is a CrossFit event at all. I do think CrossFitters could do well here just because they're more accustomed to um switching modalities, right? Like if you're a really good runner and then you go do a sled push, I think that's harder. Like, I'm talking about like a really good, like all I do is running to get good at a 446-pound sled push. That's a bigger gap to bridge than a CrossFitter adding some running, a couple of
Hmm.
days a week. So I do think that they have the advantage if they start training for this. I don't think like the programming at your gym will necessarily help you crush it here, but like I think that they have the advantage over a runner trying to come from this background. Because runners are typically like they run in this one plane of movement. They're like all jacked up, and they're not strong. You know what I mean? Like those are a lot of limitations to come over to get over.
Yeah, like
So
thinking of like the EO3 5K, after you do 3 sets of 15 air squats and you go right into an 800-meter run, that first 50 to 100 meters, you're a bit slow and stiffer because you just did a bunch of air squats. And it's not the same as just, I can just run in the same direction for the whole time. And that's kind of what you're going to get here too.
yeah, and that's what Mark and I were talking about is like a lot of the workouts we've programmed are like perfect for this. Not perfect, but like a great test. So just to bring up some workouts I'm going to throw into my training for this that already exists around Garage Gym Athlete is the EO3 5K, which is a combination of a bunch of calisthenics and 800-meter runs. The GGA 5K, which is even more calisthenics. You add pull-ups and it's 1 mile run at a time, 1.03 miles. Then there's Broken Arrow, which is like all of these are longer duration. They're not like 12-minute Metcons, right? They're like the EO3 5K anywhere from 35 to 45 minutes for probably a good time. And then the GGA 5K, probably 45 to 55 minutes for a good time. Broken Arrow, if you're finishing sub 1 hour, that's amazing, but it can go up to an hour 10, hour 20. So these are just like, it's mixed modality, but with a lot of aerobic base. Like I've already programmed a lot of great workouts for this. And those are honestly my favorite types. That's why I'm so interested in HYROX, because I'm like, I wish HYROX existed when I was like in peak Murph shape, like whatever, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 8
Hmm.
years ago, whenever that was. I feel like I would have absolutely crushed it. And I'm not saying, I'm not making any excuses. I'm just saying like I was in the best mixed modality shape there from like an aerobic with being able to do a bunch of muscular endurance stuff. And I don't think it's CrossFit just because you're like interchanging different things. I really don't think it's CrossFit at all. And here's how I've been thinking about it lately is like there's tennis, right? It's like this big sport. It's awesome. All the pros have been, they do amazing things that you can't do in tennis, and then pickleball comes on the scene. And all the tennis players they just crap on pickleball just constantly. But everyone else is like, we don't care. Pickleball is what we want to do. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like pickleball is overcoming tennis, and all the pros are whining and complaining about what pickleball is doing to the sport of tennis. But the world is like, we don't care. Pickleball is more fun, and pickleball is what we want to do. And I kind of feel like that's the difference between CrossFit and HYROX right now. Is like CrossFit's like, no, we're truly the best. We're like an actual elite sport and we're finding the fittest on earth and our competitions are really hard. And everyone's like, yeah, that's true. But HYROX looks more fun. And so we're going to do that. It's like, I'm not debating whether or not CrossFit might actually be finding the fittest person on earth. Like in all honesty, like, and I'm talking about the highest level. My problem with CrossFit is the average mom or dad going to do like a 12-minute high intensity workout every single day thinking that that's the answer. But when we get to elite level CrossFit Games athletes, where these people aren't just doing CrossFit, we've talked about that they're following a strength program, they're throwing in some metabolic conditioning, they're doing a ton of aerobic work, like a ton of aerobic, just straight up single modality running. They're just doing a ton of it. CrossFit Games competitors might actually be the fittest people on earth, if not decathletes in the Olympics, right? Like it's one of those two groups of people, because things that CrossFit athletes can do is just like run a 4:30 mile and then also clean and jerk 400 pounds. Those things are insane. Like they're insane. And I no doubt you're doing some awesome stuff finding that person, but you're leaving out all the regular people, right? Like it used to be like this more inclusive thing, but now it's not really, because the elite level CrossFitters have gotten, the gap is so far. It's more like, it's like the NFL. It's like, yeah, it's fun to watch, but I can't do any of that. You know what I'm saying? Like I'll never be able to do any of that stuff. And that's how CrossFit's becoming, I think, for the masses. But that's not how HYROX is. HYROX, like if you can just keep moving your body, I don't know if there's a time cap, like you can get through this and it's a lot more fun. So yeah, I think the tennis and pickleball example is the best I could come up with, like how I think it's happening. It's like pickleball's taking over the world. It's actually changing some tennis clubs to where they're not using tennis courts anymore. They're changing like 2 or 3 tennis courts to like 5 or 6 pickleball courts. And I think the same thing is going to happen here. It's like HYROX is just going to continue to explode because the events are known. I don't have to get good at a snatch or a clean and jerk. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a very low risk of injury to this event overall. So I think that's why it's gaining so much steam.
Yeah, and like there's a lot of gyms that are already approved HYROX training places where you can find either coaches or they have the either the training equipment or people that do the races. And like there's even a gym here near me in Spain that I could go to. So it's just kind of crazy to think about. So they already have gyms and places to train and open up for you to do some of these if you just wanted to try them out.
Yeah. So let me break down the event a little bit, because once I started looking at it, I was like, who does this favor? And it definitely favors somebody with a massive aerobic engine. Like they can pretend like there's a lot of strength in here, but there's not. There's very little strength. Almost, I mean, other than the sleds is the only argument you could have for having any kind of strength. And
sleds are really gonna hurt people.
yeah, I feel like the sled is like a massive separator there. Like if you are, because all these other things I feel like you could be good at. Like even if you're not very strong, but the sled seems heavy. I'm very interested to see what those actually feel like, those weights. But I bet it looks challenging on paper. It doesn't. I don't look at 446 pounds for a sled push and I'm like, not too bad. I mean, I'm like, that seems like a lot. But like I said, I don't push sleds that often. But anyway, how I broke it down was this is predominantly aerobic capacity. So I'm talking like 65% aerobic capacity. Then, probably another 35% muscular endurance, just straight up muscular endurance. And then you have power endurance. And so you notice how everything I said there is strength related or is endurance related. It's aerobic endurance, muscular endurance, and power endurance. Now, there technically is strength because you can't have a high level of power endurance without having some strength. But pushing a sled is not necessarily raw strength; it's power, and so it's for distance, like so it's really more power based. So everything here, it's an endurance event, and I think people should realize that. Like it's power endurance, muscular endurance, and aerobic endurance. Aerobic endurance, we know how to train. Muscular endurance, we know how to train that as well. You can just get in a lot of reps of something like Murph, GGA 5K, EO3 5K, Broken Arrow, those kind of things. But power endurance is like the sleeper. Like I think if you don't know how to program that, you will get eaten up, because the power endurance, the big power endurance movements here are 50-meter sled push, 50-meter sled pull, kind of, and then the 80-meter burpee broad jump. I think that is the biggest sleeper movement in there over anything else. Everything else it's like, I know exactly what that's like. I've done a lot of burpee broad jumps. I've done a lot of burpees. I've done a lot of broad jumps. And that is such a power-based movement that I think people don't realize how fatigued you're going to get if you haven't trained power endurance. That's just going to like drain all your energy. It's going to zap you right before you go into another run and then another 1,000-meter row. So that's my breakdown of like the areas you'd need to train if you want to get good at this event.
Yeah, and the run in between is also something to adjust. I did my mock workout a couple weeks ago, and I started and ended in with a 1K run. So I did 4 1K runs, and in between I did the 1K row. I did 4 minutes of airdyne because I don't have a ski erg, and it was still a lot of lower body to it. And that's about what same time domain will be about. I think rowing took me about just under 1,000-meter row is just under 4 minutes, so 4-minute airdyne. And then I did the 100 wall balls, and running afterwards, like that first, like I said, the first 50 to 100 meters, you're kind of wobbly, but once you get going, it's finding that right 80%. I'd say just like we do with the EO3 5K, that right 80-85% pace that you can maintain for a long time and not just like burn it out. It is really good that the wall balls are last because that was the absolute worst when I did this workout. Yeah. But the run is essentially it's a rest, but it's not a rest. Like it's the equilibrium you have to find is in the run to a comfortably but hard pace.
Yeah, like you don't want to. I mean, it's crazy, man. Like the programming behind it too, because if these were 800-meter runs, it'd just be a little bit different. It's like that 1,000-meter just puts it a little bit into that like endurance category to where it's like, okay, I can't sprint this. And I just know this from the EO3 or the EO3 5K where it's 800 meters every time. It's like, if you want to burn it to the ground and run like your fastest 800-meter, you're not going to survive for very long in the EO3 5K. And I see it happen to people twice a year because we do it at these big events twice a year. And people are normally burnt out by like the third one. So you really have to know your pacing there. But that's also like when I used to do the EO3 5K and like race a lot when I was in the military, like race other people doing this workout. That was always the separator. Is like you could gain some ground on calisthenics, but it was really your pacing on the 800-meter that would make the biggest difference. And in all honesty, I'm gonna be running behind Bishop because we can't. It's doubles. We can't split up. I guess if we finish the 1K not together, it's like a 3-minute penalty or something like that. And so I'm gonna have to just chase. He's gonna have to be my rabbit. I'm just gonna have to. All right, Mark, you push us on the runs. I'm going to do my best to keep up with you because he's a much better runner than I am. But then maybe I push more on the sled, or maybe I help more on the sled and he paces us on the rest. Now, the only thing I don't like about the event is I don't like that it goes from 1K run to 1,000-meter ski erg or another 1,000-meter row. To me, those make no sense. But that's also like because I don't love endurance events. Like that's kind of what this is. Like I think I'm gonna like this a lot, but like going straight, like I would never program that in a workout. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I wouldn't go, let's do a 1,000-meter run to a 1,000-meter row. Like to me, it doesn't make sense. They act like it's a strength movement, but I guess if you're a runner going to a ski erg or a runner going to a rower, those will really screw you up. Maybe. But like those still aren't strength. Like they're very high aerobic, very low muscular endurance. So like I don't see why those are programmed, to be honest, that way. I would have maybe just added other more strength based. But again, that's my bias speaking, not necessarily that it's poor programming. It's just a lot of it's so much aerobic. There's so much aerobic in this thing.
Yeah, and I guess you'd have to think about what you can do indoors at a station and what's not a high degree of skill, because like instead of one of those, you could make it double unders, but then double unders is highly based on skill, and then you get into some of the things with like CrossFit
yeah.
who's
becomes a limiting factor, right?
Yeah, but it's not really skill based. It's just as long as you just have to put in the work for all of what you said.
Yeah. And doing these events like Broken Arrow, GGA 5K, EO3 5K, what I always coach people through on these too, and what I'd coach anyone through on the HYROX is just don't stop moving. Just don't stop. There's really no need for it. Like if you can't physically push the sled, that'd be the only reason you should stop. Otherwise, there's no real reason to stop. Like you can jog a 1K. Like you can just like keep moving on the burpee broad jumps, but don't stop. Just keep moving on these things, and you'll make it through. Yeah, but I think I want to talk a little bit about programming. But did you have anything else?
No, I don't think so. Definitely with the like you're getting into programming. Definitely with the sled. Once you get the momentum going, don't kill the momentum. I saw when I was watching the video that you sent me about it. I see some people that were like leaning into it and were pushing it like a couple inches at a time. And I'm like, no, just rest. And then once you get the momentum going, just bite your lip and just keep pushing, because it's going to be way better. Even though it's going to hurt, it's going to be way better to just keep the momentum going than starting the momentum back up with sled pushes.
Yeah, and I got to rewatch that video a couple times. There were a lot of like
rules.
If you do this,
A lot
it's
of
a
rules.
penalty. If you don't do this, like I gotta write all that down because I still don't understand it all. Like my understanding on the doubles portions, like we have to run together, we have to finish at the same time, which means I don't know why they care so much. I guess because one person could run really fast and get to rest a bunch. But if they're having to match the pace of their slower teammate, they're still getting to rest. So it doesn't standing rest or like zone 2 rest anyway. But then I think that we can split the work, but maybe not on everything. Like on the sled, Mark could push it. And then if he's like done, he could just get out, hop out. I could push it. And so that's cool. But I don't know if that's true on like the 1,000-meter row. I think if I start the row, like I have to do the row. Like I don't think I can be like, okay, I do 500, you do 500. And I don't even know if I'd want to do that. I feel like the transition would cost us more time than it would just be for one person to finish it out. But Mark and I will have to like talk strategy and stuff, what we want to do there. But to get into programming, so if you're thinking about doing something like this, here's what I'm doing. For strength, I'll just hit on that first. I am doing body geo. I'm sticking there for a couple of weeks. And then my strength will transition to IWT, so interval weight training, which we've also done a lot on the Hard to Kill track recently. And the reason I'm doing that is because it's just IWTs are almost perfectly geared towards this kind of thing. So if you're unfamiliar with an IWT, it's like a power-based movement. And then immediately following that power-based movement is a run, typically 2 to 3 minutes. I will probably go higher in the time domain because normally we do like, let's say it's power clean. You do power clean, then you run for 2 minutes. I'm going to be doing that type of IWT, and then you rest for 2-3 minutes. I'll probably do something like that, like a power-based movement, and then I'll do runs. But my runs, I'm probably going to clip up to 4 minutes, probably 4-minute runs, because I think that's probably more realistic of like what a 1K will be. If I had to guess, like I guess probably longer, right? I guess is a 1K more like 5 minutes?
Oh yeah. So when I just looked at the workout that I did last month, my runs were just over 5 minutes. I think my last one was like 5.5. And some of the stations were right around 5, except for like the row. That's obviously like a 4-minute. So the row and skier, you already know what your pace is going to be because the meter basically tells you. But everything else seems to be about 5 to 5.5 minutes. Now, I don't know how the sled one's going to go because of that.
Yeah. So I'll have to. I don't think I want to push up to like a power-based lift and then like a 6-minute interval. I just don't think I want to do that. But then the EO3, anyway, so strength, body geo. Sorry, I don't want to get sidetracked on that. Body geo for a little bit, and then I'm going to transition to interval weight training, and then I'll be doing interval weight training pretty much for the remainder after the first couple of weeks of body geo. And then I'll start adding in, like I'm already doing, there'll be a lot of zone 2 work just to maintain my base aerobic work and running intervals. So running 2 to 3 days a week, getting that, like I said, zone 2, a lot of base work, and then high end intervals. So doing 800s, doing 400s, doing 1Ks, doing 2Ks, doing mile repeats, all those kind of things will be in there programmed from a running standpoint. And then just trying to get as much power endurance as I can, because that's something I haven't been training as much, to be honest. And it's never really a focus, even on the Hard to Kill track. It's like we'll touch power endurance, but we don't train power endurance like for a full cycle because power endurance sucks so hard. I just don't think, and it's not that necessary, right? It's not that it's more of it can be super glycolytic and it's really painful. So I don't like to program like power endurance once or twice a week for a full cycle because people would get so burned out. But I'll be throwing in power endurance at least once a week. And so I'll either be doing that with a sled. Another way I like to do power endurance, if you just really want to like punish yourself, grab a kettlebell. You can do the kettlebell snatch test. You can do max rep swings. So like grab a 50-pound kettlebell and swing it 50 times, swing it 100 times without setting it down. Just keep going. You'll realize, oh, that's power endurance. Yes, that's power endurance. And probably the best way to train power endurance and the safest way is going to be with a kettlebell, because kettlebells, we talked about this in the last podcast episode, they can have you generate a lot of power, but in a very safe way. I don't like training power endurance with clean and jerks or snatches with a barbell for time over and over, high rep. I don't think that's smart, and I don't think it's good for your body. So I'll be doing some air bike work, sled work, and some stupid kettlebell stuff. That's what I'll call it, like painful kettlebell things. 70 pounds, 70 reps, those kind of things. Did I ever tell you about that time in the military when I got challenged to do that?
What was it?
So I just got reassigned to special tactics, and I showed up, and the colonel knew I was like a fitness guy, and he just challenged me, like straight up challenged me. Cause he did something. He did like 50 kettlebell swings with 50 pounds or something like that, unbroken. And he thought it was awesome. And then I didn't say anything. He was the colonel. Like, he was a colonel. I'm not,
Yeah.
I was a captain. I'm not going to say shit, dude. So yeah, you did great. But he just challenged me anyway. He's like, I want you to do 70 reps with a 70-pound kettlebell without setting it down. And I was like, okay. And so I did it. And it was one of the worst pains I've felt in my entire life. Well, think about it. There's no way I'm not doing it, right? Like, if I was just like chilling, like didn't need to show anybody, like whatever, I probably would have quit that. But I didn't quit that one. It was 70 unbroken reps with a 70-pound kettlebell. I was in pain for a solid like 5 minutes after. Like, it hurt during, like it probably started really hurting at like rep 30. And I had to push to 70. And then afterwards, my quads, my arms, my hands, my forearms, like everything was just in so much pain. That, ladies and gentlemen, that's power endurance. So I'm not saying you have to go do that exact thing, adjust it to your level. I don't think I could even do that today. Like, I think I could try, maybe get to 50 reps or something like that. But those are the kind of things I want to get good at, just because it'll make something like a burpee broad jump so easy. If you can handle stuff like that, the burpee broad jump is going to be a joke.
Wall balls.
The wall balls. I think wall balls are going to be fine if I'm doing stuff like, and that's kind of how I round this out. I talked about strength. I talked about aerobic, power endurance. But then I'm also going to be throwing in kind of like a Meet Yourself Saturday, but it's just going to be a couple of Meet Yourself Saturdays on repeat. My Meet Yourself Saturdays are going to be GGA 5K, EO3 5K, Murph, Broken Arrow. That's it. Those 4 on repeat once. One of those each per week so I'll hit each one of them a month, like, in a month cycle. So like, one Saturday's Murph, next Saturday's GGA 5K, next Saturday's EO3 5K, next Saturday's Broken Arrow. Next month, they all just start over. Murph, GGA 5K, EO3 5K, Broken Arrow. That's just what I'm going to do, because those are like it's the meet yourself, it's the muscular endurance. And I think if I master those workouts, wall balls would be no issue. Because think about it, you're doing, and the GGA 5K, that's 360 squats. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's insanity.
But you're going to add them to your workouts, though.
Add what to my workout? Maybe a little bit.
You have the perfect place now in your house. You have a tall indoor ceiling.
Yeah.
And I know you have a 30-pound ball, but like,
I'll do some.
It's going to feel so much lighter when you go and you're like, oh, this is only 20 pounds. I got to 30 pounds.
Yeah.
That's what
I guess I'm not concerned about the wall balls, because if we can break it up, I only need to do 50. Or if Mark doesn't want to do as much, I need to do 60 or 70, and so like, even right now in my brain's like, that's fine. Cause it's the end, right? It's like,
yeah,
if it was the first thing, that'd be different. But for me, I'm like, that's just the grit. That's just the grit event. Like, I just need to, whatever I have to do to make that happen. I don't care if I'm throwing up, like, just do the wall balls, and then you're done. Like it's and I think all the other things. But yeah, I will definitely throw some in there, and I'll only do 30-pound wall balls. So by the time, because that's all I have. So by the time I get to the event, it should be easy. But I'm excited about it, man. I'm excited about this event overall.
How much money do you want to sink into preparing for this HYROX?
Like a bet or just like
No.
yeah. Oh, well, I already bought a sled, which is $800. Let me look at I already
Because
have a skier,
if
I have a
you,
rower. Like
because
what
you were
else do I
talking
need?
about it, a month ago or so. But if you got an Airdyne, then you could do condition me to the grave.
Yeah, Condition Me to the Grave is a phenomenal, other than it actually almost sending me to the hospital one time, or actually killing me one time, should I say. I'm trying to think of, I don't think I'll add that one in. Because it is like predominantly conditioning, but it is
Yeah,
phenomenal.
because you have the
And
running
now
and
you
then the
kind of make me
rowing
want to do
too.
it. Yeah. Maybe. I don't know if I add another. I'm gonna have to get rid of something. Like it's always a
You got
space
plenty of
issue with me.
you got
I
plenty of
got
space now.
space, but like
It's
I
filling
do
up
kind
quick.
of
It's filling up
need,
quick.
yeah. The sled's not coming inside. It's gonna
Yeah.
stay outside. But yeah, maybe I will. Maybe I'll get an Airdyne so I can throw Condition Me into the grave in there instead of doing Broken Arrow. That Broken Arrow is so awful. It's like,
Well, you got like 10, 12 minutes on double unders. So like
well,
that's not translate to the event.
no, it's just the muscular endurance associated with Broken Arrow. But I am going to change Broken Arrow up. I don't think I'm going to bike. I forgot to say that. I know it's 10 miles of bike in Broken Arrow. I think I'm just going to do rowing and ski erg for 10 miles.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Or find the equivalent. I haven't like figured out exact. I don't know if that rowing 10 miles and biking 10 miles are very different. So that's not going to, same with ski erg. Ski erg's more on par with running, and rowing's closer to running as
Say
well.
it'd probably be half, probably
Yeah.
5 miles because
So
usually
maybe I'll
everything
do like
is
2.5
about half.
miles ski erg, 2.5 miles row, something like that.
Yeah.
Uh,
I got to figure out if I am going to do the one in Madrid because the end of October they have an event in Madrid, and we might actually be in Madrid that same weekend because my parents will be in town. So I got to debate if I am going to do that. I would do the singles, not doubles. So I've been doing
yeah.
it solo, which will suck. And I don't even know if they have any spaces open now this far out. So I'll have to look into that.
You know, and just to talk about like why do these events and why I'm so interested is I like having things on the calendar to train for. But here's the deal, like I thought, like I did the ultra, like the death by 5K. Running races just are not my thing. They just never will be, because to me, I'm not trying to be. I don't ever want to train to run a fast marathon. That's the least interesting and most mentally painful training I could probably do, is like training to run a fast marathon. And that's just me. I'm not going to do it. And I was like, okay, well, how about ultras? Because that's just, you just got to slug through it. Like, let's do some ultras. I did that one. To me, since running's just kind of not my thing, ultras are like, it's just an exercise in suffering. It's not, again, I'll never be like competitive in them. I think some of them are cool, but like I don't think I want to go any further in that sport. CrossFit, I don't want to compete in at all because I don't want to train that way. Even though, like I said, I respect the high up men and women in the CrossFit games and their training. But this really has me interested. And then Spartan races and stuff, we've talked about those. Those are cool. We've done plenty of those, but they have some of their cons and drawbacks too. So like, I really like this idea of HYROX. I don't know if I'll end up doing more, but I can't see finishing one and not being like, why not do another one? Like do one a year. And
You'll
the
find
reason
something to do better.
yeah, because like I'll do this one with Mark, but then maybe the next one I go solo or something like that. But I like having something on the calendar because already I put this on the calendar like a week ago, a little bit less than a week ago. I've got new programming. I'm going to be super consistent. I won't miss any training sessions. I won't relax on any of the intervals that I run because I know it's for a reason, for a purpose. And if I'm just training for no reason, like I'll be consistent, but I won't be like at the top of my game, in all honesty, mentally, like if I don't have something to train for. And so that's why I like that HYROX exists and that it's gaining some steam, because who knows, maybe I do put 1 to 2 of these on the calendar per year, not to try and be competitive, not to try and like, I don't care about any of that stuff that much. Like it keeps my training and my consistency and my discipline sharper. So that's a big reason I do these things. It's not to go prove to how fit I am or anything like that. I could care less. I just want something that's like, hey, I got something to train for. There's a reason that I need to go do this. And I've even heard a couple people talk about they're thinking about doing like HYROX Kids. And that has me excited too, because if this is something like I can go do and my kids watch me do, like they can become more interested in the sport of fitness, if you will, and it not having to be CrossFit. Because my oldest son, William, he asked me the other day. So we talked about training. I've been training him this summer. He asked me, and I don't remember if I talked about this on the podcast or not, but he's like, hey, you're fit, you're strong, you're athletic, but you don't play a sport. Like he just clicked this summer when he's training. He's like, I don't have to play a sport to be strong and fit and athletic. And I'm like, well, I played sports when I was younger, so you should keep playing sports. Like, I think it develops.
You can.
Yeah, it develops a certain level of athleticism and all these kind of things. But it also kind of clicked with him that like, if I don't like a sport, I don't have to do the sport because I want to be strong and athletic. Like if you can be strong and athletic without having to do that thing. And I think that that's something that's opening up for our kids more so than we had, which is like, you can actually just go work out and then compete in working out. Like that's kind of what the joke about CrossFit has always been, is like, oh, you're the fastest exerciser. Congratulations. But it's like, yeah, but there's a lot of fitness involved and it's a cool thing. And I think the HYROX competition is better for people. And so anyway, if it's something I get my kids interested in, I'm all about it. Like I'm all about it. So becoming a fan of HYROX, but we'll see after my first one how I feel about it.
It's nice finishing an event not covered in mud, and you can like hang out and do something. You don't have to feel like you have to go rinse off at a water buffalo and then try to change your clothes before you get into a muddy car because everything's just a mess.
Yeah, or you're broken for like 4 or 5 days. Like after I ran the ultra, like I was fine, but like my training had to change for like a week or 2 after that. Like I had to go easier on stuff. I'm gonna hit this on a Saturday. I'll be training back to normal by Monday, because this isn't that far from something I would just do for fun. Like this, like Broken Arrow and this, pretty similar in the suck factor. And Broken Arrow could just be a Saturday for me. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I mean, to your point, like we're not muddy, we're not getting hurt, we're not like, having to recover for 3 weeks or anything. Like if I did a 100-mile ultra marathon, like I'd be broken for a long time, and then I have to recover. And yeah, I'm just not interested in any of that crap. This looks pretty fun. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, those are our thoughts on HYROX, thoughts on programming, thoughts on training. Again, I'm Jerred.moon on Instagram. If you want to follow like my daily, I'm posting almost every single workout on my story. And so you can go follow along with that. And then for all of our garage gym athletes out there following the programming, maybe this ends up in the app somehow. I'll talk about that with Joe when we're not recording the podcast. See if that's something we want to do or not.
Okay.
He's like, oh, well, I got a new project. So that's it for this one, though. For all of our garage gym athletes out there, thank you so much for sticking to the programming and being a garage gym athlete. If anybody wants to learn more about what we're doing, go to garagegymathlete.com, sign up for a free trial. We would love to have you, but that's it for this one. Remember, if you don't kill comfort, comfort will kill you.